Captain Elias stood alone on the rocky hill. The sky above was purple, with two large blue moons watching silently. The ground below his boots was dry and cracked, like it hadn't seen rain in years. He looked down at the small grave made of stones and red alien dust. His hands trembled as he placed a small silver necklace on top. It was hers, Lyra's, the woman he had loved more than life itself. "She's gone," he whispered to himself. Voice dry and cold, he knelt beside the grave, brushing his hand over the alien writing carved into a metal plate. Her name, her birth date, and one line he had written himself, "The one who made me human." His chest ached as he remembered her face, her voice, her strange glowing eyes. That used to calm his heart. She wasn't human, not really. She had scales like fine glass on her arms, and her hair shimmered like silver threads. But she had a laugh that warmed him on the darkest days. She had stood by him during war, shared his food when they starved, and bled beside him in battle. And in the end, she had died to save him. One bullet meant for him had taken her life. Instead, he couldn't even cry. The pain was too deep, like something sharp stuck inside his soul. He sat beside the grave, his hand still on the metal plate. "I tried to move on, Lyra," he whispered. "But I can't." The wind answered with a soft howl, carrying dust across the barren land. He stayed there for hours, silent, just breathing. The night was colder. Now the stars slowly appearing above. He knew he had to go back to the ship soon. But he didn't want to leave, not yet, not ever finally. He stood, his knees stiff, his back sore. He gave one last look at the grave. The only thing he had left of her. "Goodbye," he said softly, turning away. Crunch. The sound behind him made his heart skip. He stopped, listening, his muscles tight. With sudden alert crunch, again footsteps on dry earth. Slow and heavy, he turned around sharply. Hand on his belt where his old blaster used to hang. Someone was there, standing near the grave. His breath caught in his throat. It was her. She was standing weakly, her body shaking, her face pale under the moonlight. She wore the same torn clothes she had died in. Her silver hair was messy and tangled, dust covering her skin. But those eyes, those glowing blue eyes, looked at him with pain and something else, recognition. Elias couldn't speak, his mouth opened, but no words came out. He thought he was dreaming, or maybe losing his mind. His hand dropped to his side, and he took one step closer. "Lyra?" he said, almost a whisper. She didn't answer. She just reached out a shaky hand and gently touched his shoulder. Warm, real, alive. He fell to his knees, staring up at her in disbelief. She looked weak, confused, her lips moving slowly like she was trying to remember how to speak. "I woke up," she whispered, "in darkness. I was buried. But I heard you." Elias was still frozen, his heart thudding like a hammer in his chest. She shouldn't be alive. He had buried her with his own hands. He had seen the blood, the still body, the empty eyes, and yet here she was, touching him, speaking, breathing. "How?" he asked, his voice shaking. "How are you here?" Lyra closed her eyes, then opened them slowly. "I don't know," she said. "I felt pain, then sleep, then voices, then nothing." She looked around, her body trembling, and then, "You calling me?" Elias pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. She was thin, fragile, like she hadn't eaten in days. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest. Tears finally fell from his eyes, hot and fast. It wasn't a dream. She was alive, but behind the joy, fear crept into his mind. This wasn't natural. People don't return from the dead, not even on alien planets. Something had happened, something beyond reason, and he was going to find out what. He looked around at the quiet night, suddenly feeling watched. He didn't know who or what had brought her back, but he knew one thing: he wasn't letting her go again, not ever. Elias stared into her glowing eyes as the night wind whispered between them. His heart still didn't believe what his arms were holding. Lyra was alive or something like it. He had buried her under rocks in silence, and now she stood before him, cold to the touch, shivering but alive, her fingers curled into his jacket like she was scared he might vanish instead. They didn't speak for a long time. They just held each other in the dim blue light of the moons. She looked thinner, weaker, like something had drained her, and her eyes, once full of light, now looked like they had seen too much darkness. "We can't stay here," Elias finally whispered. He looked around, his instincts kicking in. Something was wrong. The air felt heavy, the ground too quiet. It was like the planet itself was holding its breath. He helped Lyra walk down the hill. Each step was slow, like she hadn't used her legs in days. He didn't know what was keeping her alive, and a part of him didn't want to ask yet. Not now, not while he still had her in his arms. They reached the rocky path near his old dropship. He had come alone, on a leave of absence, just to say goodbye. Now he was leaving with the one person he thought he'd lost forever. The ship's old engine coughed as he started it. Lyra leaned against the seat, staring at the stars through the window like she was trying to remember what they were. Inside the ship, the air smelled like dust and metal. Elias poured water into a cup and handed it to her. She drank it slowly, like even water felt strange to her now. He watched her carefully, every blink, every breath. He still couldn't believe she was real, and yet she was right there, less than a meter away. "I woke up under the dirt," Lyra said quietly. Her voice was softer now, like a memory speaking. "I couldn't breathe at first. Then something touched my chest." Elias leaned forward. "What touched you?" She shook her head. "I don't know. It felt like light, but it had a voice." He frowned. "What did it say?" Her lips trembled, and her eyes became distant. "I couldn't understand the words, but it wasn't angry." She rubbed her arm and pulled up her sleeve. Elias leaned closer and froze. On her skin were strange symbols, glowing faintly blue like they had been burned into her flesh with light. He reached out and touched one. It felt warm, too warm for her skin. She winced. They weren't there before. Elias pulled back his hand, his chest tightening. No science he knew could explain this. No medkit could heal the dead and mark them with glowing signs. He stood up and began pacing. This wasn't just a miracle. This was something bigger, something ancient. Lyra watched him, her eyes following each step. "You're scared," she said. "Yes," he admitted, "because people don't just wake up from the dead." He sat down again, resting his elbows on his knees. "And you said something touched you. Something that speaks." She nodded slowly. "It wasn't human, but it wasn't cruel either." Elias opened a compartment on the seat and pulled out a small scanner. He waved it over her arm. The symbols glowed brighter, reacting to the machine. The scanner beeped and shut off suddenly, the screen turning black. "Damn," he muttered. "It's like your body's rejecting the tech." Lyra held his hand. "It's not just my body. Something else is inside me now." Her words chilled him. She wasn't saying it like a dream or a metaphor. She meant it. Something had brought her back, and it hadn't left. Before he could respond, a sharp beeping echoed from the ship's warning system, movement outside. He rushed to the panel and checked the screen. Several heat signatures, moving fast, armed. Lyra gasped and grabbed his arm. "They're here." Elias turned to her. "Who?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "The ones who buried me." His heart raced. He grabbed his weapon and looked at her. She was shaking again, fear rising in her eyes. He helped her to her feet. "We have to move." She nodded, but her legs were weak, her steps unsure. Elias wrapped his arm around her and guided her toward the rear exit of the ship. Outside, the wind had grown louder, as if the land itself was warning them. The moons above looked colder now, distant and uncaring. He didn't know who was coming, or what they wanted, but he knew one thing. If they had buried her once, they wouldn't hesitate to do it again. And this time, he wasn't going to let them. Asterisk. Elias dragged her through the trees as fast as he could. Branches scratched his arms and wind bit his face, But he didn't stop. Not with those figures chasing them under the twin moons. Lyra's breathing was uneven, her legs shaking, but she didn't complain, not even once. Behind them, the sound of heavy boots hitting soil grew louder. Whoever they were closing in. Elias cursed under his breath and turned sharply into the thick brush. He didn't know where he was going, but anywhere was safer than staying still. They finally reached a narrow cave opening between two massive black rocks. Elias helped Lyra inside, then crawled in after her. The space was small, cold, and smelled like dust and old fire. They sat in silence, pressed together in the dark. He listened, waiting for footsteps, blaster fire, or worse, but nothing came. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. The wind outside settled, and the stars peeked through a crack above. Elias turned to Lyra, her head resting on his shoulder. He still couldn't believe she was real, but he couldn't forget the glowing marks on her skin either. "Let me see your arm again," he whispered. She raised it slowly, as if afraid of what she might see. The symbols were still there, glowing faintly like they were alive. He touched them gently. They pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Not hers, something else, something deeper. "I think someone did something to you," he said, "before you were buried." She looked at him with wide eyes. "I felt it. You remember?" She nodded, voice shaking. "I wasn't just dead, Elias. I was taken." The words hit him like ice. He leaned closer. "Taken where?" She closed her eyes, forcing herself to remember. "I woke up. Not in the grave, not at first," she whispered. "There was light, too bright to see. And voices. Esheens." Elias listened, barely breathing. "They put something inside me. I couldn't move, but I felt it. Burning, changing." She opened her eyes, tears running down her cheeks. "When I finally woke up under the dirt, I thought I had dreamed it, but now I know it was real." He took her hand gently. "You didn't just survive, Lyra," he said. "You were used. And we're going to find out why." Suddenly, Lyra jerked forward, gripping her stomach. Her body began to shake violently. Elias panicked. "What's happening?" Her back arched as a low growl escaped her throat. Not her voice, not her sound. She clutched her head and screamed, and then she spoke. But not in her voice. "Do not interfere, human." The words came out flat, cold, and in a strange tone. "This vessel belongs to us now." Elias backed away, eyes wide. "Who are you?" he demanded. Lyra's eyes glowed white, her body stiff as stone. "We are the Rememberers." The voice said, "We awaken what was lost." Then her body collapsed into his arms. She was unconscious again, her breathing shallow. Elias held her tightly, fear rising like a wave in his chest. This wasn't just about Lyra anymore. It was something older, something buried deep in this world, and maybe others. He heard a faint sound outside the cave. A soft mechanical hum followed by distant voices. The hunters were still looking for her. But now Elias had a bigger problem. Whatever had brought Lyra back wasn't finished, and it was watching him. The fire crackled quietly inside the cave, but Elias felt no warmth. Lyra lay beside him, wrapped in a thin blanket, her skin pale, her breath soft and shallow. The strange voice that had come from her mouth still echoed in his mind. "We are the Rememberers," it had said. Who were they? And why had they chosen her? He stared at the glowing marks on her arm. They looked peaceful now, like sleeping stars. But he knew they were alive. Not just a design or scar, something deeper. Something ancient. Outside the cave, the night stretched long and silent. But Elias's mind was loud with questions. He had seen war, seen death, seen strange alien tech. But this was different. This was unnatural. Suddenly, Lyra's body moved. Not a twitch or stir. Her back arched violently. Her eyes snapped open, glowing white again. Elias reached for her, but stopped. The same cold voice returned. But this time it was not speaking to him. It was speaking to something far away. "The vessel is stable," it said, "but incomplete." Then silence, then a response. Though Elias heard no voice, only saw Lyra flinch. Her head tilted slowly, and her lips moved again. "Affirmative," she whispered. "We will begin the second phase." Elias grabbed her shoulders. "Stop," he shouted. "Who are you talking to?" Her eyes turned toward him, glowing bright. Then the light faded, and her body collapsed into his arms again. She groaned and blinked, her voice soft and confused. "Elias, what happened?" "You were speaking," he said, "but it wasn't you." Tears filled her eyes again. "I can hear them, like whispers in my head. They're not letting go." He clenched his fists. "I need help." He pulled out his old transmitter and sent a silent signal to a man he hadn't spoken to in years, Dr. Rain. A medic, a scientist, and the only person Elias trusted with alien tech. If anyone could make sense of this madness, it was him. They left the cave before sunrise. Moving through the thick alien forest, Lyra was stronger now, but still silent. Her eyes watched the trees like they were hiding secrets. After hours of walking, they reached a small hidden camp built under the roots of a giant tree. Dr. Rain stepped out, older than Elias remembered, but just as sharp. "What the hell did you drag in, Elias?" the doctor asked, looking at Lyra. "She died," Elias said, "and came back." "But she's not alone in her body." Rain raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Elias told him everything, from the grave to the glowing marks to the strange voice. Rain's face grew pale. "I've heard of this," he whispered, "but only in ruins and whispers. Old stories buried deep in alien texts. They were called the Rememberers. No one knows who they were, but they existed before most known species. They believed memory could be stored in living flesh even after death," he pointed to Lyra's marks. "They didn't bring her back, Elias. They reactivated her." Lyra looked horrified. "So, I'm not me anymore." Rain stepped closer, scanning her arm with a small device. "Your body is still yours. Your mind, your soul, it's sharing space." Elias stepped in. "Can we stop it?" Rain sighed. "Not easily. If we rip them out too fast, we might lose her too." Suddenly, Lyra clutched her chest, gasping. Rain's device started beeping wildly. "Something's changing again," he said. Lyra fell to her knees, whispering words in a language none of them understood. Elias dropped to her side. "Lyra, stay with me." She looked up at him, eyes glowing, not white, but deep blue this time. And then, her voice returned, not the cold one, but her own. "They're searching for something," she said softly. "Something they lost a long time ago." Elias frowned. "What are they looking for?" Lyra closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered two words that made Elias freeze. "Their heart, asterisk." Asterisk. Elias had never seen her cry like that. Not during the war, not when friends were lost, not even when she had faced death. But now, under the soft light of the alien dawn, she wept as if something inside her had shattered. She said they were searching for a heart, not a weapon, not data, but a heart. He didn't understand. But he didn't interrupt her. Some answers were more fragile than silence. Dr. Rain stood still, his face tight with worry. "This isn't just technology," he said finally. "It's emotion, memory, purpose. The Rememberers didn't just put themselves into her," he continued. "They're trying to feel something they lost." Elias clenched his jaw. "And they're using her body to do it," Rain nodded. "They might not even understand love, but they want it back." Lyra looked up, her glowing eyes flickering softly. "They show me flashes," she whispered. "Memories that aren't mind planets I've never seen, skies I've never touched. And one name keeps returning." Elias leaned in. "What name?" She swallowed. "Kelra." Rain's eyes widened. "That's a name from prehistory. A myth, even among alien scholars. She was said to be the first Rememberer, the one who gave herself fully to the process. Some believe she became the heart of their network, the one memory they never recovered." Lyra looked shaken. "And now they think it's me." Elias stood slowly, the pieces coming together in his mind. "You're not just a host, Lyra," he said. "You're a key. Maybe they brought you back because your soul is close to hers, or maybe because you loved once." Truly, before anyone could say more, a sharp sound cracked through the camp. A pulse high and sharp, followed by silence. Elias turned just in time to see shadows moving through the trees. The hunters had returned, Rain shouted, "Inside!" Now, Elias grabbed Lyra's hand, and they rushed into the deeper part of the root shelter. The lab lights dimmed, and walls folded silently into protective panels. Outside, voices echoed, but they weren't speaking any known language. It sounded like singing made of metal and sorrow. Lyra clutched her head, the voices getting louder. In her mind, "They're not just here for me," she gasped. "They're part of it." Elias looked to Rain. "What does she mean?" Rain's face turned pale. "They're not hunters, they're vessels too. Other failed hosts. Or worse, ones who surrendered fully." The wall burst open with a flash of white light. 3 tall figures entered, tall, thin, eyes empty like glass. They didn't move like people, more like puppets with forgotten strings. One of them raised a hand toward Lyra and spoke in the strange tone. "Return," it said. "Kelra belongs to us." Elias raised his weapon. "She's not going anywhere." The figure didn't flinch, didn't pause. It just kept walking, and behind it more were coming. The entire forest was alive with footsteps. Lyra stepped forward suddenly, her hand glowing with soft light. "Stop," she said, her voice clear and full. The figures paused mid-step, as if surprised. Elias stared. He had never heard her speak like that before. It was like something ancient had just awakened in her chest. "I am not yours," she said, louder now. "I remember who I am." The nearest figure began to crack its skin, splitting like old bark. Blue light poured from within it, and then it fell apart. The others froze. Unsure, Elias looked at her with awe. "What did you do?" She shook her head, tears still falling. "I spoke with my heart." Not theirs. But just as they thought it was over, a distant rumble began. The ground shook lightly, like something large was waking far beneath the soil. Lyra collapsed to her knees, clutching her chest. "They're angry," she gasped. "They're coming, the real ones." Elias held her tightly, feeling her heartbeat flutter. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was standing between 2 worlds, one of love and memory, and one that had forgotten both, and whatever was buried below them wasn't finished yet. The ground didn't just shake, it pulsed. Like a giant heartbeat deep beneath the soil, Elias stood frozen, holding Lyra close as the trembling grew stronger. From the shattered tree roots above, fine red dust drifted. Like falling ash, Dr. Rain's eyes were wide with horror, his scanner flashing red symbols Elias couldn't understand. "Something's rising," Rain whispered. "And it's not just angry, it's ancient." Outside, the forest had gone. Quiet, too quiet. The puppet-like figures were gone, scattered or destroyed. But the silence they left behind was worse than any scream. Lyra lay still, her skin cold, the glowing marks on her arms pulsing in rhythm with the ground. She was still with them, still connected somehow. Elias placed his hand over her heart and leaned in. "Lyra," he whispered, "stay with me." Her eyes fluttered, but she didn't respond. Rain checked her pulse, then his scanner. "She's alive, but slipping," he said. "They're pulling her deeper, trying to take her completely." Elias looked around the room, searching for anything. His eyes landed on the stone Lyra had once carried, the strange crystal she left when she vanished before. It glowed now with blinding blue light. He grabbed it without thinking. It burned his skin, but he didn't let go. He placed it against her chest. For a second, nothing. Then her body arched upward with a scream that didn't belong to her. Voice came in layers, hers and another, speaking together. "You seek the heart," the voices said, "but the heart does not belong to one." "She is ours," said one voice. "She is mine," Elias said back, not blinking. He held her tighter, refusing to let go. "She's not a tool, not a doorway, she's a person." The crystal in his hand cracked. releasing a sudden pulse of light. It spread through the entire room like a wave, knocking Rain back. The light entered Lyra's body, and for a second, she rose off the floor. Her hair floated, her eyes burned white-blue, and her voice called out not in fear, but in power. "I am not your vessel," she shouted. "I am Lyra of the living." And then everything stopped. No more shaking, no more glowing, just silence. She fell back into Elias's arms, breathing hard, sweat covering her face. He looked down at her, both terrified and amazed. "Are you?" "You?" he asked. She opened her eyes, normal now, human. "I think I fought them," she whispered. "But something's still inside me." Rain sat up from the floor, his body aching. "You connected to the core, Elias," he said. "Whatever that stone was, it was a memory key. It tried to merge you both." Elias looked at the cracked stone in his palm, still faintly warm. "I don't care what it tried," he said. "I only care that she's still here." Lyra tried to stand, but her knees shook. Elias helped her to her feet, her body leaning into his like a fading flame. "We have to finish this," she said. "They won't stop until they get what they lost." "What is it really?" Elias asked. "What are they missing?" Lyra looked up at him, her eyes clearer than before. "They lost the one thing that makes all memory matter," she said softly. "The part that gives it meaning. Love." A sound like thunder rolled across the sky, not from the clouds, but from the earth below. A crack opened near the edge of the forest, a black hole leading deep underground. Elias stared at it, his gut twisting. "They want us to go down," he said. Lyra nodded. "Slowly. They want us to return what they've forgotten." Elias tightened the grip on his blaster and looked at Rain. "You coming?" Rain sighed. "This is madness," Elias smiled sadly. "It always is." Together, they stepped toward the dark, gaping entrance. Below them waited the heart of something buried long ago. Something that didn't just want Lyra. It wanted to feel alive again. The air grew colder with every step they took into the pit. It wasn't just underground. It was beneath history, beneath time itself. The walls pulsed like a living tunnel, made of dark stone laced with glowing veins of blue. Elias held Lyra's hand tightly, his other hand gripping his old blaster, though he doubted it would help. Behind them, Dr. Rain followed in silence, scanning everything but saying nothing. No one dared speak. Even the sound of breathing felt too loud in this place. This was no ordinary ruin. This was a tomb with a heartbeat at the end of the tunnel. They reached a wide circular chamber. At its center floated a massive crystal sphere. Slowly turning, it hummed softly, a low sound that made Elias's bones vibrate. Lyra stepped forward, drawn to it, her eyes glowing faintly again. "They're here," she whispered. "All of them." Memories filled the air, images flashing around the chamber like ghosts. A mother holding a child, a warrior dying in battle, a song sung by a forgotten race. So many lives, so much pain, all stored in this place like books no one could read. Lyra dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. Elias knelt beside her, placing a hand on her back. "They don't want to hurt us," she said. "They just want to feel again." Her body began to glow, her skin lighting up with the same ancient symbols. "They think I'm their lost heart," she whispered. "They think I'm Kelra." The giant sphere pulsed once, then floated down slowly. It hovered just above Lyra, humming louder. A voice filled the chamber, not through sound, but through thought. "Merge," it said. "Complete us." Elias stood, pulling Lyra behind him. "No," he said firmly. "She's not a thing to complete your puzzle." The voice responded again, colder this time. "She carries our history, our sorrow, our purpose. She carries herself." Elias snapped. "She's not yours." The sphere cracked slightly, as if reacting to his words. Lyra stood up, trembling, but stronger now. "I was given your memories," she said aloud. "But I was not born from you. I am not your past. I am my own future." The glowing marks on her skin began to rise like vapor. The chamber trembled, and the crystal sphere started to fracture. You want to feel love, Lyra said. Then feel mine. She turned to Elias and placed her hand on his chest. This man mourned me, she said. This man remembered me, not for what I was, but who I was. The moment her hand touched his heart, light burst from the center of the room. Memory swirled violently, spinning like a storm, then slowed. The ghostly images became still, peaceful, and then one by one, they faded. The sphere cracked open completely and dissolved into dust. The symbols on Lyra's skin faded too. Disappearing into the air like morning mist, the ground stopped shaking. The silence returned, but this time, it was calm, not empty. Elias looked at her, eyes wide with awe. Did it work? He asked. Lyra nodded slowly, breathing hard but smiling. They're free, she said. They remembered what they lost, and they let go. Rain finally spoke, his voice hoarse. They didn't want to control her, he said. They wanted to be her. Elias looked confused. She became the heart not because she was chosen, Rain said, but because she chose. They climbed back up through the tunnel. The blue veins now dim, the walls still. The surface greeted them with the soft wind of morning. The twin moons low on the horizon. No more hunters, no more whispers. Just light. Elias turned to Lyra, who now looked fully alive, flesh warm. Eyes soft, breath steady, no glow, no markings, just her. I buried you, he said, voice cracking. She smiled, taking his hand. You said goodbye, she whispered, but I heard something deeper. I heard love, and in that quiet moment, standing on the land where she died and rose again, he realized something. The grave was empty. Now not because she had returned, but because she had never truly left. She had just waited for him. Asterisk.